If you're working on revisions in your story and you're feeling like you're actually making things worse with every change, you're not alone. And today I'll be sharing why you're feeling that. I saw a writer asking for help in a group. They had just finished their first draft and they were really excited to be done and they're working through revisions, but they were concerned because it felt like with every revision, they weren't sure if they were making their story worse or better. And I think a lot of us can relate to this fear. It's a super common concern. And it ultimately happens when you're not really sure what you're looking at yet. And I don't mean this to be a mean critique. It's not a judgment because, like with anything else, if you just don't know what you're doing yet, you don't know if the changes that you're making are good or bad. It is all a part of learning, and it will ultimately come and you'll get better with experience. When you're revising without clarity, you don't know what matters, which means you don't know what should stay. And ultimately, every change feels really risky. You're worried that it could make things better, but it could make things worse. Maybe it makes it better in this way, but worse in this other way. You're fixing a problem just to create another one. And that's a very valid concern. As the author of the story, you're super close to it. You have backstory, world building, and character moments that you are in love with. And that is a beautiful thing. But when you're too close to the story, everything feels important and everything feels worth saving. That makes it nearly impossible to judge your revisions objectively. If you don't know what you can cut and what you can keep, you probably don't have a strong enough sense of the story that you're telling. And that sounds like a really harsh critique and it might be hard to hear, but it's the truth. And you cannot grow unless you know the truth. I'm not here to be mean. I'm here to be kind and tell you the truth in all honesty. If you don't know the core of your story, you're probably going to find revisions to be very difficult. You need to know exactly what your story is about. You should be able to summarize your story in a single sentence. If you cannot do this, you do not know what your story is really about. And if you don't know what your story is really about, you probably don't know where exactly the story is going. You don't necessarily have an end in mind. Even if you think you have an end in mind, is it really the ending to your story, or is it just a fun ending? And without that knowledge, you can revise for literally ever and never have a finished story. And if everything is feeling important, that's not because it actually is important. You probably just don't have enough distance from your story to be able to tell what's important. And more than that, if you don't know what your story is about, how can you know what is important to the story you're telling? That's part of the reason it will all feel super important, is because that's what's in the story, right? If you don't have the core of your story identified, then it is all important. This is why outside perspectives can be so important to writers. Asking for help from people like critique partners, beta readers, or developmental editors can be absolutely invaluable in the development of your story. But there is a dark side to asking for help, especially from critique partners or beta readers. It's important that you know what your story is about before you ask for feedback. And that's because you have to have something to weigh their feedback against. Because they won't mean to do it, but they may tell you how to change your story to make it more like what they would do. And it may not actually be the best choice for your story. And they don't mean to take it and start making it their own. It's just the way of art and creative. The other thing, and this is particular with beta readers, but can absolutely be the case with critique partners as well, is that they're really great at identifying what isn't working, what feels off. And it's the symptom of an underlying problem usually. but they don't always know why that symptom is occurring. So they don't know how to actually fix it. So it's important to remember that if they're telling you that the start of the story is confusing, does not mean that's the actual fix for the problem. Now, it might be confusing, and so you probably need to look at that, but don't just assume that the solution they prescribed to you is actually going to fix the underlying problem, because they probably don't actually know what's causing the confusion that they're experiencing. So if you're in a position where you've made a lot of changes to your story and you're still not happy with it, you're feeling like all of the revising has been a waste of time, it has not been a waste of time. This is all a learning experience for you. And revising is a huge part of writing, and there is so much that goes into it. You finish the story and you're like, oh, great. I'm so glad that's done. But really, the writing has just begun, because revisions are just as important, if not more important, than getting the first draft done. So do not feel like any of your revisions have been wasted time. Just accept that it is all part of your journey as you're learning the craft of writing and storytelling. So the biggest takeaway, if you take away one thing from this video, let it be that you need to get super clear on what your story is about in order for your revisions to feel intentional and productive. If you do not know what your story is about, you have nothing to judge your revision ideas based on. And if you want to know how to do that, let me know in the comments below. I can make an entire video on that. I really thought about touching on it here, but it was going to make this video way too long and we were going to stray away from what I wanted this video to focus on. So if that's something that you want, let me know in the comments below, because I would thoroughly enjoy making it. I really think that you'd probably find it very helpful. The good news is that feeling lost and conflicted in your revisions is totally normal, and it's all a part of the learning process. This discomfort is a signal that you just need to learn something, that there's a skill deficiency. And so focusing on learning the skill of revision is going to pay out dividends. Once you know exactly what story you're telling, revisions stop feeling so dangerous, so risky, and they start to feel more intentional. Like I said, if you're interested in learning how to revise your story without fearing that you're making it worse, let me know in the comments below. It could be an entire video, maybe multiple, we'll see. But let me know in the comments so I know if it's something that you're interested in seeing. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed this, please give the video a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe to the channel, because I've got a lot more videos just like this coming your way. Thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next video.